What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Diesel Dog video. I got something a little different for you guys tonight. If you're new to the channel, I am a heavy-duty diesel mechanic. Started out in automotive early in my career, switched to the heavier duty side of things, working on mostly pickup trucks and semi-trucks and dump trucks and things of that sort. But one thing all of us mechanics have in common is tools. We all require tools to perform our job. Some of us like having all the latest, most expensive snap-on gadgets and filling up our drawers, and that's fine. Some of us just like the bare minimum to be able to do our jobs, and that's fine too, but we all require tools. But what if you're on a job and you need a tool that you don't have, no one in the shop's got it, and the tool truck just came yesterday, so it's going to be another week before it even comes? What then? Well, some of us will go to the scrap bin, get the grinder out, the welder out, and see what we can make. I don't mind modifying some of my tools if it makes the job easier or if I'm in a pinch. And some guys come up with some pretty creative ideas. I've got a few things I've made myself, so I thought I'd do a video and show you guys some of the tools I've made over the years and kind of kept stuck in my toolbox here. So some stuff isn't stuff I just made. I got some examples of some tools I modified, sockets and wrenches and whatnot, and then some other stuff I actually made. So let's get into it. So I've been doing this long enough to where I'm really not afraid to grind down any of my sockets or wrenches or anything I've spent money on. If it's still gonna work when I'm done, then whatever. So here's an example of a socket I ground down. This is a Matco 1/2 inch, 1.5 inch socket. And basically I was using it to get a pinion nut off, and it was kind of recessed in there, had a kind of a shoulder on the pinion. I couldn't get the socket all the way in there to reach the nut, so I ground down kind of the shoulder of the socket there and got to work. Nothing too crazy here, but an example of something you might have to do in the pinch to get the job done. I mean, no one else had a socket that was going to fit that. I don't have any chrome 1.5 inch. Maybe like a chrome 12-point socket would have got in there just fine. But for the next job, this thing's already ground down and going to work good for me. Here's an old wrench I had in my box. It's a 1 inch. It's actually a combination wrench. It was 1 inch on one side and 15/16 on the other. So I was trying to get the ICP out of an older, like the first gen 6.0 Power Stroke. It's on like the back side of the motor, so you got to kind of get up underneath in like between the engine and firewall. I think there's a heat shield you got to get off, and then you can get that ICP sensor out of there. But it's actually a 1 1/16 I think you need. So I ground down, enlarged the open end there and lopped that off, so I got enough room to get that thing out of there. And it's the only time I've ever used this, but I could not get that thing loose with the tools I had. So little modification, and you can even see it says Ford 6.0 ICP. So it's legit. Here's an example of a tool I modified quite a bit. Actually, this is a valve spring compressor, and I actually bought this years ago when I had the 454 SS and I was doing valve laps. Some of you OG guys that have been following me for a while probably remember that. But I used this here, and then I brought it to work just in case I needed to use it on anything at work. Well, this thing works on cars and small trucks, but if you're going to use it on the bigger stuff, the arms didn't reach quite long enough. So I needed to use it on a Detroit or something. I can't remember. It's probably been like 3 or 4 years now since I've done this, but I found a bracket, an angled bracket. I can't remember what it was from, but I sliced a couple little arms off there and welded them to the existing arms. I cut the feet off the existing arms on here, and basically just used these as the new feet, and used the longer feet on there to compress the spring, and it worked pretty good. And actually, guys have borrowed this. We've got some valve spring compressors like in our tool room, but couple of guys have actually borrowed this tool, said it works a lot better than what we got. So pretty good modification. I'll leave that in my box. If you got a set of punches and chisels, I always got a couple where I grind an angle in there. You can use this chisel. This is a little smaller one to use on any of the bushings and stuff, but like if you're doing a clutch on a 10 speed or something and you can't get the cross shaft bushings out if you got to replace them, this works really good. Or like kingpin bushings, I've used a punch with the bevel kind of ground in there. If you can see that, I don't know if it'll focus really good enough, but basically I just grind an edge on there and you hook that up in there, hammer on the end, and it'll kind of fold it up or cut it. But I like doing this method more than like putting a bit on the end of an air hammer, because there's a little more room for error doing it that way. This is kind of more of a clean, precise way of getting that, and you can go around and kind of fold it in. But that's just if you're having troubles and they don't want to come out, then this method works pretty good. But I always have a couple of these punches. I know they're expensive, but the snap-ons are what I got. And if they start to bend or anything, I just I'll cut it and buy a new one. So I have a couple of these cut ones. Work pretty good for various bushings. Here's like a Frankensteinish contraption I made here. This is a injector puller I made for a Duramax. I just stuck injector. It's like a 2014 or 15 Duramax, doing injectors on it. And it was one towards the front on the right side. So it was either the very first one or the one behind it, but I can't remember. It wasn't like too tight or anything, but the thing was stuck so bad I could not get it loosened up. Tried everything. I Googled GM's injector puller for their Duramaxes, and it basically looked almost identical to what this bracket cut up and bolt welded contraption is. So basically what I got here is actually, this is the bracket I made it out of, or one of them. I don't know, I hold on to weird things like brackets like this. I throw in my toolbox because you never know when you could make something like this out of it. But basically, cut these two pieces in half, welded them together, strengthen it up a little bit, basically wallowed out that opening there that slid up on the injector, and then I got a bolt welded on the other side with a nut welded to the side. So basically you can get a wrench on this side one and pull up, or you can get the box end on the back and pull up this way. So this thing ultimately did work, and I've kept it, and I've never used it since. I only used it the one time. But if I got another stuck injector, I tried using it on the Power Stroke 6.7s and it doesn't fit in there. Maybe if I ground this down a little bit it might work, but those I usually don't have any problems with. Speaking of 6.7 injectors, I forgot I brought this home. This is a tool that actually another guy made, and he made me one because I said, if you want to save me a line, I'll make my own. But he ended up just tacking me up one real quick. But he took the nut off the injector line on 6.7s, was getting all new lines, so lopped the nut off, welded a bolt to it with some washers, and basically you can just thread this on the top of the injector where the line goes. Got your washers here, and you can get a pry bar in somewhere, not on a sensor or anything, probably on the valve cover. Don't break anything. So you thread that on there, get the pry bar in there, and you can pull up and pull the injectors out. So nice little simple tool, but effective. So, but I can't take credit for that one. One of the guys at work, like I said, made that up. So, but I got it and haven't used it yet. How many of you guys work in a shop where if one comes in on the hook, they park it like all the way on the end of the lot, as far back in the corner as they could possibly drop it when it doesn't start or build air or anything? Happens all the time, it seems. Leave the drive shaft out, can't build air, gotta push it in. Fun. Well, a couple tools like this come in real handy if you're working on the bigger trucks. This is basically just an air chuck stuck in some fittings. You can take a fitting out of the air tank, thread this in, got a ball valve on it. Basically hook it up, air it up, close the ball valve, pull the air hose off, and you got air to release the brakes. I've got a couple different styles of these made up. I've got one where you can pull the charge line off and hook air up and air it up that way, and then pull it off, and then, you know, it's going through the air dryer and all that, so air doesn't gush back out. But these stuff like this is handy to have in your toolbox, and easy to make out of stuff just laying around the shop. One hard part about pulling engines on stuff is sometimes finding hook points to where you're going to put your chain or your hoist or whatever. And the 04 Cadillac XLR is no exception. This was kind of a different job I had in the shop. It was actually like a head stud, reseal, hold type of deal on an 04 Cadillac XLR. Nowhere to hook up the chain, like all small bolt holes, and didn't want to break anything. Everything's aluminum. So here's just something really simple I made up. I made up some engine lift brackets here. This is just some angle iron. Cut a couple pieces here, and then I drilled holes where the intake bolts to. So a little too flimsy just to use one bolt, so I got 3 on this one, 3 on this one. Put some duct tape on the bottom so I didn't mar up the aluminum or anything, and then I just got some bolts I threaded through here for the chains, and lift straight up. Worked good. Something real easy. It only took me 20 minutes to make these things up or whatever, or half hour or whatever. Some scrap laying around the shop. Just an example of, man, don't be afraid to try to make something up. I've seen guys make up pretty clever like brake spring tools. I bought a couple from Matco and Snap-on, but I've seen guys make up stuff that's just as effective, and you don't have to spend any money, just a little bit of your time. So this is all just simple stuff. Mostly I made up with stuff laying around the shop. So I don't know. Maybe some of you guys find this useful. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there that have been around for longer than I have got some pretty interesting stuff. Maybe some more involved tools you've made rather than I have. But this kind of stuff I think is kind of interesting for maybe some of your newer guys seeing this stuff and get some ideas, or maybe some of you guys have been around for a while, never thought of some of this stuff. So I don't know. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know down in the comments some of the stuff you guys have made up. Give me some ideas, and I'll see you guys in the next video.